Blue Lock is comprised of strikers who have the main goal of climbing over one another to become the world's best, but even in said environment, close partnerships can come about. Cut to everyone's favorite obsessive puzzle master, Yoichi Isagi. Isagi has had multiple partnerships with other players in an effort to make their weapons and abilities more potent and usable, and today we discuss who he made the best duo with. That being said, there are limitations and conditions. Not everyone from every team he's played on will be eligible, and while there are definitely players he's worked with closer than others, for instance Seagos 4 and Team Z, we are looking specifically for characters who Isagi has had a more closely, consistently, and specifically coordinated relationship with. So without further ado, the characters who make this list are Meguru Bachira, Seishiro Nagi, Ranze Korona, Yo Hiyori. We'll be looking at the freedom, opportunity, actual goals, and evolution of not just Isagi, but said party to determine which of these relationships is the best and most symbiotic. I'm also taking into account outside factors and timing to get a better holistic view of each of these partnerships, so none of these players has an unfair advantage based solely on which version of Isagi they're playing with, and we'll be looking at the past and present of the character to see how they have and could partner with him. As for some faces that you may be curious as to why they aren't here, first, we have these three. Rin, Baro, and Kaiser. These three aren't here simply because they've had less of a partnership with Yoichi, but rather they've had opportunities that revolved around him or chances to feel out of his plays. Simply, they aren't friendly with him at all. A partnership in this context is more going in side by side helping each other achieve a goal. An opportunity is seeing Isagi there and using his presence for their gain. Sure, you could say Isagi has himself pounced on opportunities made available by those on this list, but you can't deny the clear difference in mindset that make up these collaborations. Rin and Isagi were essentially partnered up in the U20 by ego, but that was just because Isagi could lend himself as an extension to Rin's plays, a fate that he would immediately try to break away from. With Baro, what they have is kind of like an anti-chemical reaction. They use and steal from each other. It's effective and mutual, but it's a bit too warped to lead Baro to this list. And finally, the one you can maybe make most of the case for, Kaiser. These two, like Baro, stole from each other, but also sabotaged, used, and just hated each other in general, making this honestly the most venomous teammate relationship, making Kaiser seemingly the least likely to end up on this list. However, the two did agree to enter into a temporary partnership in Chapter 285 for the purposes of crushing some geniuses. Though, considering just how short-lived this duo will be, the fact that it's still teaming with bitterness, and the fact that they aren't actually trying to work with each other, but instead are just coordinating where they can on the most logical path, which they can most see via Metavision, I'd say it's still just too opportunistic. It's really just them agreeing to not actively screw each other over, which should be obvious when you're on a team with someone, so yeah, no. Kaiser's not making the list. Also to that point, love this comment we see in the chapter that's just, this is what they should have been doing the whole time, because it's absolutely true. Then there's also people Isagi was friendly with who didn't make the list, namely Chigiri and Kunigami. These two definitely stand out in terms of people who have worked with Isagi, but with who's on the list, I'm just not sure about them comparatively. I think the mentalities are somewhat similar at points, but the dynamics just aren't the same. It's really just a straight judgment call, and these two don't pass qualifications for me. Now, on to the four. Let's analyze when they played with Isagi, how they played together in terms of synergy, what they were able to achieve, and the effects the partnership had on both. First, Meguru Bachira. These two have played together in the first and second selections, as well as having both made the team pit against the Japan U20. These two had a very quick and natural resonance. Bachira immediately became interested in Isagi during the game of tag before they even became Team Z, feeling the desire to pass him and see what would come of it. Isagi himself, also despite being kind of thrown off by Bachira, at the same time felt determination and courage conversing and playing with him. These two meeting in itself would jumpstart their evolution as Isagi, fitting the role of a soccer friend that could excite Bachira, would amp up and lead him to being generally more energized when playing. For Isagi, Bachira's provocation would lead to his ego festering. Their camaraderie could also be seen in their first game playing against Team X. In his position of forward that he won in a Rock vs tournament, looking for passing options, he would always look toward Bachira, as well as partnering up with him to try and make a goal toward the end of the game. Now you could say that it's because it's the most logical thing to do, seeing as Bachira's ability is one he's seen and worked with the most, having gotten his help during tag and due to their brief training session just before the match, but still, them playing together the most doesn't really detract from anything. This team up didn't lead out of them scoring, but instead to Kunigami claiming the only goal for Team Z that game, in a 5-to-1 point difference. In the next 3 games, we'd see Isagi and Bachira pair up in defense, but what really stands out is Isagi's 2 goals, Bachira being the one to send him the passes. In both of these instances, Bachira's inspiration toward a greater play was able to keep up with Isagi's reading of the field. He also had an understanding of what Isagi needed regarding his direct shot in the moment of truth during the Team V match. Bachira himself also had a moment against Team V where he was able to dribble through them all and score a goal, and while you can't say he was motivated by not wanting to lose and be separated from Isagi, as he stated just before the game started, the desire to not be separated from Isagi is just a general thing for him, as well as wanting to win, not wanting to lose the right to represent Japan. So it's not really a statement that stands out. Plus, he only performed that well because he went alone. This scene retroactively makes more sense after his awakening in second selection, but by not relying on others to create a fantastic play and simply focusing on his own excitement and love of the game, not feeling the dread regarding the 0 to 3 point disparity like his teammates, he was able to have his inspiration boil to a point where he played off his inspiration to the fullest. Still, throughout the first selection, the two worked together for defense and attacks a lot, as well as just in general off the field being good friends, which compatibility both on and off the field only strengthens the merit of their partnership. Then we get to the second selection. They did immediately get separated after their first match, and when they would get to play on the same team again, it would be against players just so much better than them, but even their time apart led to them being seen as a better whole. Starting off, the two did team up at the start along with Nagi, and their teamwork on display was very smooth. Of course, they do still end up losing. But afterwards, when the two are apart, the first thing to look at is Isagi's belief in Batra. The results of the 2v2 he plays against Naruhei and Baro shows he's willing to let his teammates fall in order to grow stronger and add skilled teammates to his ranks. He was teammates with Naruhei on Team Z, him being someone he'd be able to work with way better than the clearly much more self-important and absorbed Baro. Despite that, he took the handful of a teammate in the King due to his greater skill and potential. And yet, despite that willingness to let his former comrades' dreams die, he stays resolute in his wanting to win back Batra, who's on a team with the top 3 highest ranked players in Blue Lock. He even says when he makes it to the 4-on-4 stage and challenges Reen that he's there to steal Batra back, making it clear who he intends on taking. Then in said match, he's able to beat Reen's reading of the field as well as stop Batra, who acted as a joker card no one could read, even his own teammates, by his own words, because he believed in Batra. On the flip side, Batra realized that he relied too much on Isagi, for fear of being alone after finally finding a friend to play his ideal soccer with. Though during their match, Batra is able to shed his need to play with Isagi, is able to play soccer for himself. Him summoning the courage in himself to leave the monster behind that he would constantly seek gave him the push to be able to surpass the entire field, but when Isagi still came at the last minute, it showed that while he could play without him, he did prefer to play with him, as he was the one who would always be there for him. But something important in the moment Isagi blocked Batra is that the Bob Monster would describe that moment as them surpassing Reen, which I would agree with him on. Isagi was able to outread Reen due to his partnership and belief in Batra, the narrator even saying that play surpassed Reen Itoshi's, and Batra in that moment couldn't be properly read by Reen. So even being apart throughout the second selection, their partnership was still able to push them toward the top at the highest point of the most intense game. Then to the World 5. Batra, Reen, and Isagi's chemical reaction leading to a goal against them. As Aoru describes it, Isagi and Batra's coordination spurs them to greater heights, and Reen can devour them both. Thanks to the last match, the attack combination of those three is working now even against the world's top players. Now, while Reen was a factor in it, so it's not purely the Isagi-Batra duo, the fact that they were part of the chemical reaction of one of the only 2 goals scored against the World 5 still speaks volumes to me. As for these new versions of Isagi and Batra, they do perfectly complement each other in terms of mentality and affecting playstyle. Isagi is a player that constantly adapts to the state of the field and who values teammates that can push and devour him as he devours them back. Batra is a player that pushes towards his very best and only links up with players who can push his visualization and inspire him. Like I already said, they spur each other on and can push each other with every play they link up on. Finally, the Japan U20 match. At the beginning of the match with Blue Lock's first attack, Batra gets the ball, and when cutting through the U20s and surveying available teammates, he spots Isagi, identifying him as the one most coordinated with his best plays, and as he steps in to receive it, Yoichi once again reinforces that he believes in Batra's dribbling more than anyone else. Later on, Batra is also able to swoop in and coordinate with Isagi, but the two's coordination gets interrupted by Baro attempting to steal, and Batra takes the opportunity to take the ball and cut through the Japan U20, which I just bring up because shout out to Batra. I mean, all 3 arcs at this point, he's gotten a moment where he just dribbles through a whole team. First selection against Team V, second selection, Team Isagi versus Team Reen match, and now U20. Also, I count the third selection not as its own arc, but as part of the prologue to the whole Japan U20 arc, but I mean, like, you know, whatever. We didn't get to see Batra in that one, so whatever. But yeah, shout out to my boy. But that's it for these two. Their partnership hasn't really had any other updates in terms of playing with or against each other. True, there was the Barcha versus Bastard match, but there's not much to talk about there, I don't think. Though, off the field, their friendship is very prevalent, with the two in general just enjoying one another's presence, and Batra being easily able to decipher the thoughts spinning around Isagi's head at any point, like when he's choosing a team during the start of the third selection and NEL. That ability to decipher his thoughts would be prevalent in a game as seen in something like the U20. Moving on. See Shironagi. For him, we gotta look at the second selection. Having fought Isagi before and losing to him during the last match of the first selection, Nagi's curiosity is piqued, leading to his decision to team up with the duo of Isagi and Bachira. During the three's first match, Nagi was able to fit well into the combo, even taking a pass from Bachira and redirecting to Isagi with his delicate first touch. But in the end, they do lose to the top three. But when the two are pushed down to the 2v2 stage, they realize they'll need to brush up on their own individual skills on top of forming chemical reactions. Their eyes haven't been opened due to losing their partners in the forms of Reo and Bachira. We then get to the 2-on-2 against Naruhaya and Baro. The first goal they scored was a product of Nagi's own evolution ability. He even thinks how he doesn't need a special pass as long as he gets his opponent to chase him, and he's able to get to the ball first. All Isagi needed to do was pass, but said pass was just a kick to an open area that Nagi could chase. The next goal, Isagi is able to quickly break down the state of play and the options Nagi has, with him sending a full force pass so he can make use of his black hole trap and score. Next, a quick 1-2 pass with the goal, and the fourth is the same as the first, with it mainly being based off Nagi's strengths. For the finale, Isagi takes advantage of Baro's blind spot, and Nagi passes to him as he gets around him, Yoichi cinching it with a direct shot. Not a lot to say for this match, as the point was to develop skills that help the two of them in one-on-ones. Working on their teamwork wasn't the pending factor for them, and when they passed to each other, it was either quite uncomplicated or purposely not complicated, like when Isagi just passed to an open area. They still passed to each other well, but their link-ups weren't necessarily that crazy or even prominent. That does change, however, for their match against Reo, Chigiri, and Kunigami. Against the Tri-Fusion, Isagi and Nagi essentially have to work together with Baro serving largely as a tool or bait. The first goal they make is due to the chemical reaction they were able to create, having honed their individual skills last match, with Isagi being able to visualize many new routes and plays with Nagi, passing to an optimal point to deal with Chigiri so he could use his opponent off-guarding way of trapping. With this, he's able to score off Chigiri. For the next two shots in a row, Isagi's reading of the field and uses Baro as a decoy, along with Nagi's absolute skill and trust in Isagi's brain, allowed the two to operate in a smooth combination and quickly score two back-to-back goals. The two were in what seemed like an instant, no more prominent than the flip of a switch, able to take control of the field. Finally, the 4v4. Team Isagi versus Team Rin. In Team White's beginning play, Isagi and Nagi's coordination made so they were able to smoothly move the ball from Isagi to Nagi, and then Chigiri as the finisher, showing off the two's abilities and faith in set abilities, working as anchors to set up plays. Team White's next shot is a show of their ability to work together and elevate, leading to the two being able to overcome the superior opponent in the form of Rin. Nagi was able to identify a key point in the back and forth between Isagi and Rin as the number one's physical advantage. This led to him forcibly inserting himself into the two's battle, and the two will be able to react to their opponents as well as each other's improvisations to form a stronger force and score through Rin. Overall, Isagi is definitely a replacement for Reo in terms of what they do for Nagi. Despite the fact that Nagi did develop a method for one-on-ones, he does still rely on the different passes and vision of Isagi a fair bit, as is even stated later on. That being said, that doesn't mean the white-haired beanpole's performance is anything to scoff at. His own performance and goals were impressive, showing just how talented he is and how eager he is to capitalize on his own strengths. The two definitely got stronger together, with Nagi trying to sharpen his control and trapping, and with Isagi's vision improving. He was able to clearly see the many avenues and combinations with Nagi, to which there was no shortage of. And when they got to making a play, they were able to ad-lib in the middle of it as well. The two are definitely a formidable duo, being two of the fastest growers in Blue Lock in different ways, and when together, they have many options and can definitely set up a killer move. Third, Ranze Kurana. These two partnered up during the Neo-Aegis League. All eyes were on Kaiser, the Emperor of Bastard Munchin, who the team revolved around, and Isagi, Blue Lock's ace, who was actively attempting to carve out a place for the Blue Lockers on that team. Kaiser levied the idea that the Blue Lockers' best option to survive the NEL was to hitch their bets on either himself or Yoichi, and told them to think carefully about which king they'd choose to follow. Ranze took that to heart and decided he would actively side himself with Yoichi as a way to stand out and survive the endeavor. So, following the Barca vs. Bastard game, Kurana trained hard to increase his numbers, but also actively trained to better coordinate with Isagi. This and his all-around specs contributed to him not only getting put on the field in the Manshine City game, but being on the starting lineup. In said match, he and Isagi showed off their orbital resonance, Planet Hotline. Kurana's weapon is his speed and tight turns. The way he uses it in conjunction with Isagi is by constantly orbiting around him, sniffing out advantageous spots for them and disadvantageous spots for their opposition. With this orbital resonance, especially after Isagi started perceiving the field with metavision, he and Kurana got to a place no one could keep up or stop besides Kaiser, who had even greater vision at this point. Though, while Isagi did lose his shot course causing him to shoot a wild shot, it did at least still result in a goal in the form of Kunigami capitalizing and redirecting it to the goal. Next game, versus Ubers. Isagi is able to cut off Uber's initial charge, and he and Corona make their way to the goal. Uber puts some defenders in front of the goal in order to slow down the attack, but the planet duo, having studied Uber's defense and playing in sync, are able to get Isagi in front of the goal, where even with Ness attempting to throw him off, he's still able to score the first shot of the game off his lefty shot. Finally, the most recent partner, Hiyori. The two most notably started working together during the Uber's game, but Hiyori would come through heavily for Isagi, starting in the third selection. He would give him the advice to think reflexively. Isagi, instead of processing information and then moving, would move as he thought as a way to keep up with those physically superior to him, as well as keep others from catching up with his thinking, similarly to when he developed his direct shot. On top of that, despite both Rin and Shido being in front of the goal, he could sniff out Isagi's placement and pass to him, leading to his goal. Hiyori's advice led to Isagi gaining a piece that would better him as a player, as well as getting him a step closer to developing his metavision, what would become his greatest weapon. His pass would also be what would help Isagi cement his worth in terms of making the Blue Lock 11 team against the Japan U20. The two would both take the field during said match, but didn't have any standout link-ups. But then we get to the Ubers versus Bastard NEL match. After Gagamaru was able to catch a borrow shot, Isagi, Noah, and Yukimiya would make a charge for the goal. Noah would take a foul, making sure Bastard kept possession and could keep charging down the field. Yoichi and Yuki would make it to about 30 meters to the goal, and Isagi would get in position to receive a pass. And while Yukimiya would see him open and attempt to pass, it was a lob in the air instead of what Isagi had been hoping for, being a fast pass to the feet. The reason why this was a blunder was the slight delay in the difference in the pass allowed for Snuffy to be able to intercept and steal it, and for Ubers to get a goal. Afterward, the Masters' 3 minutes were up, and as for who would come into the game, Isagi elected for Hiyori. This is because he knew Hiyori would be able to share in the same visualizations as he did, which Hiyori proved he was able to come to the same conclusion that Isagi did in terms of the previous play while Bastard was in possession. In Hiyori's words, we had another player that could take a bird's eye view of the field. They could anticipate Isagi's moves and support him. That would reduce Isagi's thinking time and increase our speed. He then describes his approach to supporting Isagi as becoming his shadow. The first attempt at a goal was unsuccessful, with Kaiser being able to see the spot Isagi was aiming for and attempting to steal a shot, causing Isagi to less precisely swing at the ball, as well as Baro and Aryu stepping in with a block. But said attempt was still very impressive, as Hiyori was able to, with extreme ease, fit into Isagi's puzzle, understanding and aiding his moves, sliding past defenders with his dribbling, and providing ultra-precise passes. As for the goal they do score, it stands out as one of the best link-up plays in the series, as by simply attempting to share the absolute best visualization for the field, the two trust in the fact that they can both visualize it and make a play that leads to Isagi scoring, without even looking at one another. This shows that the thinking is truly on the same page, as well as their trust in the other's ability. Not to mention, through this game and playing with Isagi's expectations put upon him, Yui was able to work through his issues and find his true ego and determination, which only sharpened his play going forward. PXG versus Bastard. Hiyori is shown able to follow up on Isagi's defense, reading the state of the conflicts he enters and being able to become an extra wall if Isagi fails. For example, when Rin hops Kaiser's block and literally lifts Isagi by the back of his jersey, Hiyori is able to become the third defensive wall and block the shot. He does something similar versus Ubers when Kaiser and Isagi go to press Lorenzo, who then passes to Baro coming up the side. Hiyori is able to deflect that pass. He and Isagi can still link up easily, seen with Hiyori's involvement in the Trifold Fusion, passing to Isagi without even looking at him. He can also just generally break down plays with Isagi very articulately. Alright, having broke down these 4 players, time to see who's the best. Let's just speed through a few different categories and see how each stacks up. These categories all reflect the different values and desires regarding Isagi. Freedom. Bachara gives Isagi lots of freedom and opportunity with his passes in the first selection. Both Bachara's change in style, where he passes to people that push him. He's definitely not concerned about someone else's freedom. Though shown in the U20, it seems that isn't much of a concern considering his compatibility and belief in Bachara, allowing him to be the one that best fits into Bachara's imagination, / Bachara being able to sense things like Isagi plotting an attack against the U20, and saying that he'd be the final piece. Now, Nagi can give Isagi some freedom for sure, just in the fact that his abilities create so many different possibilities in terms of what plays can be made. Corona thrives in this. His presence is an aid, allowing Isagi to navigate the field and retain the ball, Corona keeping up despite not even having metavision. Hiyori having the same vision of the field as Isagi means he can position himself in the best places to where the same roadblocks Isagi can see would be, and help him work around them, as well as send him ultra-precise passes to set him up. Evolution. Like he said when he picked Chigiri to join his team in the second selection, Isagi likes teammates that can push and devour him on top of supporting him. So, who of the who pushes him the most? Well, Batra, by nature of his play, would push Isagi to try and make his best possible plays, as that's the only way to even receive any cooperation from him. Basically, the two are constantly trying to evolve throughout the course of a match, so they'd have a heightening effect on each other throughout. Not to mention, Batra has been a point in Isagi's evolution multiple times, including both his goals in the first selection, which led to him discovering his spatial awareness and direct shot weapons. Batra is showing awareness that the weapon Isagi needed to hone in on was his direct shot in the Team V match as well. And he was one of the main driving factors pushing Isagi to grow during the second selection. Nagi works well with Isagi, but doesn't seem to be part of the impetus for him to evolve, besides when Isagi had to evolve to defeat him and Team V. Even during the 3v3, where Isagi's performance skyrocketed heavily compared to his and Nagi's previous match, and with the both of them working together beautifully in said 3v3, Nagi himself wasn't the one to push Isagi, though they do still kind of have an arm-in-arm approach in the second selection, where they get sent to the 2v2 stage, the words they say to each other hardening their resolve, as the two would develop alongside each other. There's also the fact that Isagi has definitely been a driving factor for Nagi, being one of the main factors of his sparked curiosity, and his feeling of rivalry towards him being what leads to his 5-stage volley. Corona serves as an extension for Isagi, making it easier for him to execute his ideas and make plays. He makes Isagi a stronger player, and then he's able to make it so he can bring his ideas to life and better maneuver, but isn't a player that exactly progresses him in terms of strength. Not exactly the same vice versa, Corona first trying to better sync up with Isagi, and now having to push himself to keep up with Isagi and his Metavision-inspired plays, whilst not having the same view of the field. The attacks on his body, having to keep up with the ever-turning gears of Isagi's mind via the strength of flesh alone, being shown in the Uber's match. Hiyori decidedly wants to push Isagi. He's a super sadist, and he has declared that if someone can't keep up with his passes, then they don't deserve them. He's also been seen trying to make superior plays with Isagi, the two attempting to make plays that rival and even surpass their no-look link-up versus Ubers. Compatibility. Batra and Isagi are best friends. Batra says much, and considering just how much they interact and how those interactions go, yeah. It translates well onto the field as they both believe in each other wholeheartedly, allowing them to work together well. They have since their very first game together. Isagi has said as much that he believes in Batra's driven more than anyone else, and Batra has made it clear that Isagi is his ideal partner. Nagi and Isagi are very friendly with each other and have been goals for the other to work toward, giving one another fire under their feet. Isagi showed to be more than a passer for his genius teammates' goals, but compound the skills he needed to fight against geniuses. For Nagi, Isagi represented both a path towards satiating his curiosity and being able to find the same fire he felt during the first selection. Corona and Isagi aligned themselves as they both wanted to make it through the NEL and make a place for themselves in Bastard München. Corona saw Isagi as the best option forward, and the cooperation with each other was essentially them putting their survival in each other's hands. Hiyori and Isagi have a massive amount of faith in each other, as seen in the fact that they were able to trust in each other's vision enough to act reflexively and believe the other would respond in kind. In Ubers itself, Isagi believed that Hiyori was the piece that would help Bastard, more specifically him, win. He also never stopped believing in Hiyori even when he wanted to give up on himself throughout the first two attempts at a goal. And Hiyori, before his sadistic side came through, expressed that he believed Isagi could be a king, and that he wanted to be the key unlocking his potential. And even though his passes are now up for anyone that he deems worthy enough for them, it's clear that his preferred partner and the striker he's got his eyes on is Yoichi. Now, having gone over all of this, I'm going to knock out two characters, Nagi and Ranze. Corona, I think, has been a massive aid to Isagi, setting himself up as a pillar of Bastard, and being the legs helping Isagi run to where his mental calculations are directing him. Isagi is able to pounce on different ideas and get through different obstacles, as he knows he will reliably have the support of Ranze, kinda like how Nagi is able to be the physical component to tip the scales against Rin. And the boy has been putting in work, as he has to push himself quite hard to keep up with someone on a path he doesn't see or understand. He's great at what he does, but I don't think these two push each other enough. Ranze has to push himself to his limit to play with a Metavision-wielding Isagi, but the same isn't true vice versa. That's not to say having a partner shouldn't make things easier though, because, if you're trying to make your way down a field full of defenders, of course having someone to pass back and forth with would make things easier on you, but one of Isagi's defining attributes is his adaptability. The ability to completely change his thinking, way of doing, and manage himself into whatever situation he's put in. That plays into his desire for teammates that he can devour and can devour him back. Ranze just doesn't challenge Isagi or spur him on. Then we get to Nagi. Nagi was on Isagi's team when he made the comment about wanting a teammate that wouldn't be drowned out and could devour them back. He can survive and thrive in the environment Isagi envisioned. And these two have been able to work seamlessly together, with Nagi having used Isagi and the challenge of beating him as a goalpost to get stronger. And as for if he can spur Isagi on, I do think back to the match against Rin. Nagi did inject himself into Isagi and Rin's duel, leveling the playing field. But still, Nagi's just a little hot and cold. He's really reactionary in terms of when he plays via his talk with Prince, but still that is in terms of tactics. Like with Rin, it was specifically just, let me rush in and Isagi will use me in some way. He's still someone who rushes into fire, but I just don't really think comparatively to the last two, he's gonna push Isagi in the same way, and that he himself just prefers to be the one nudged, instead of more of a give and take. Now with these last two, there is give and take, pushing themselves as well as Isagi, and both having played a part as a key piece of Isagi's goals or evolution, and vice versa. Bachira and Hiyori. Bachira himself is an extremely skilled player who can fill Corona's role easily with his dribbling to set up a system of back and forth. He plays in a way where he cooperates with someone, it's because it'll lead to a greater, non-boring in his eyes play, which for someone like Isagi means his plays won't be boring, as he'll be running alongside Bachira toward the ever-growing visualization of a superior play that Bachira fantasizes about. He also, in general, is a just very strong player, and who isn't afraid to dive into different challenging situations, or challenge and change his perception, or even way of thinking and being dramatically and drastically, even mid-match. And he and Isagi believed in each other to a massive degree, leading to the two being able to put faith in each other's plays that would become a step above anyone else. Then Hiyori. These two also have a massive amount of trust in each other, as seen from their no-look coordination against Ubers. They share in how they view the field, making them able to sync up very well, and not only is Hiyori's ego predicated on making passes that push strikers, so that he can make sure only the best receive his best in terms of passes, but he and Isagi are continuously trying to push themselves in the plays they make. So when it comes down to it, who do I think would be the best pick for this dynamic duo? Well, that would be Bachira. I think Bachira could absolutely make a goal crossing best like Isagi and Hiyori and Charles and Shido. Bachira has constantly believed in Isagi, and even when deciding to no longer play and search for a monster to deprive him of his loneliness, Isagi was there, and when playing together, Isagi has shown to be the one who can best keep up with Bachira's best. And of course, as I've stated before, Isagi believes in Bachira more than anyone. But on top of that, some of the passes he's received show the monster's faith in him, which is only strengthened. Isagi and Hiyori share the same vision, yes, but I believe that Bachira can keep up with Isagi via pure physicality and his visualizations, leading to him and Isagi both being able to eventually intersect into a greater goal than either first visualized, like with Charles and Shido. And with Bachira's creativity and inspiration, the possibilities Isagi might see might be even more than with Nagi. And then there's also the more patient approach, leading to the two absolutely breaking down opponents and their defenses. Their belief in each other in the past has led to the two surpassing what was the strongest before, and that was while on opposing teams. With their current skills and experience, if they came together, they could be an unstoppable duo.